First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Also going to hype up Annie. Where's Annie at? Annie, get on up here. Nobody else coming up here. Come on, Annie. And while I introduce, come on up. While I introduce them, let me talk about Annie. Annie is a sports reporter from Front Office Sports, which covers business and culture of the game in depth with passion. You got passion like me, woman. She spent 7 years at the Chicago Sun-Times, where she was the go-to voice for WNBA Today. Woo! Annie will lead this conversation with these incredible humans. Write the notes. Take it away, but most importantly, be inspired, because I can't believe I'm so close to Dawn Staley. So bye!
What an introduction. I don't even know how to follow that introduction. Thank you for that. But as you alluded to, in my career, I've been lucky enough to document this meteoric rise we're seeing in women's sports. But these three panelists have directly influenced the landscape of women's sports that we are existing in today. So I don't want to waste any more of your time, because you certainly did not come here to hear me speak. So please help me welcome our next three panelists up to the stage. First, we have Tanya Hvizdak, the VP of Global Sports Marketing at Nike. Round of applause. Next, we have Elizabeth Lindsey, Global President of Brands and Properties at Wasserman. And last, but certainly not least, four-time Olympic gold medalist, three as a player, one as a coach, three-time NCAA championship winner, and Hall of Fame coach and player, Dawn Staley.
She's coaching me right now where to sit, so.
There we go. Welcome. How are we feeling?
Doing well. Great.
This is my favorite time of the day, right before lunch. Everyone's still energized from the caffeine, and obviously we have a very exciting conversation to have about the opportunities that lay ahead in women's sports, but also how those opportunities are not only shaping our landscape in women's sports, but sports as a collective. So before we get into that, I really wanted to start with each of your journeys and what has been a defining moment in each of your career and how it's shaped where you're at today. So Dawn, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. Good morning,
so
everyone.
many defining moments, but one for us would be fantastic.
Probably during the NCAA tournament during the pandemic, 2021, when a young lady posted the disparities between what the men's tournament participants had and what the women's tournament participants had, and it was a stark difference. And it was a moment in which I felt like I had to speak out on the behalf of all of women's basketball. So I wrote an open letter, posted it on social media, and then from there, we started having hard conversations. We started just coming together as a sport. Like sometimes in our sport, we all have different perspectives. But I think this instance kind of brought us all together, and we were able to come together as one. And then from there, the momentum's built in women's basketball. So we're riding the tides of just women's basketball moving in the right direction, and now we're in a place where we're in high demand. So speaking out, let us know and let me know that people are really listening. And now that I'm over 50, can't stop.
So good. I'm 34 and I can't stop either. And I remember that specific moment and being back in Chicago and watching that video go viral and thinking how much power we have in just communicating the discrepancies, right? Sometimes in work, you think, oh, well, people must know that what I have available to me is different from my male counterpart. And that moment proved that so many people were unaware of the stark differences in the same product. It's basketball. And yet the difference was astounding. Tanya, for you, defining moment in your illustrious career.
Well, it's interesting that Dawn mentions it was from a hard conversation because, I've been with the brand for almost 25 years and I've been super fortunate. My core values align to our brand, and so I've been able to be a part of a lot of defining moments. But it was really back in 2020 when we were standing up a group called the Athlete Think Tank, and the intent was truly for that group of women to help inform Nike in regards to its path forward. And we had that first conversation, and it was to lay the foundation for either the areas of focus or where they wanted us to lean in. And anytime you're on a Zoom call and you have Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price and Megan Rapinoe and Sabrina on the call, and they're like, hey, we couldn't be any more grateful that this brand has really led the industry, but it's time to do more. Just, helping and investing isn't enough. Our voices need to be heard. We need to see ourselves in the product and the marketing and the storytelling and the sense of community. And back then, and Dawn's now been a part of the think tank, that really laid the foundation for women and women's sports to be at the forefront of everything that we do.
It's amazing. Lindsey, for you, it's fantastic to think about Wasserman and how, as a company, it's impacted the women's sports landscape. I know as a journalist, Wasserman's on speed dial. You guys have truly influenced everything when it comes to the athletes' brands early on, And so for you, what's been a defining moment?
So first of all, I'm going to fangirl Dawn Staley for a second and say this is like the coolest panel I've ever been on in my life. And I'm very proud that I can completely suck today, and it won't matter because she's here. So Dawn Staley, everybody. It's like, woo.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And it's, so look, I've been fortunate. I've been with Wasserman for 25 years. I think I was employee number 4, back in the day. So we've certainly been on a journey. One of the things that was the biggest defining moment for me, especially with respect to women's sports, is about 6 years ago, a meeting got delayed, and I'm sitting in the lobby of our client with Casey Wasserman and Thayer Lavielle. And the three of us were sitting around just talking about women's sports. For whatever reason, something was happening, and we were talking about it. And Casey brought up, he's like, we represent more female athletes than any other agency. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And Thayer's like, yeah, and of our brand clients, of the top 12, I think 10 at the time were either female CEOs or CMOs. And we were, at the time, the only agency in sports, hell, we probably still are, that is exactly 50-50 gender equity inside my team, which is amazing. We were just talking about these moments. And I remember, and at that point, we had run our women's group, which became the collective. At the time, we'd run it for about 10 years. So for 10 years, we've been putting in the time to bring women in the industry together. So we were just chatting about this. And he looked at me, he's like, so what are you going to do about it? And I said, what do you mean? And he's like, well, if not us, then who? I'm like, fair point. I said, how much money are you going to give me? And he said, what do you need? And in that moment wrote a personal foundation check to me for over $1 million to help us launch the collective. So we put our Wasserman time into it, our Wasserman energy into it, the funding from the foundation, and the collective was born. And today, the collective is the leading agency on providing research to the entirety of the industry about the power of women as consumers and as sports fans. We support a number of brands and properties around the world in helping them grow their presence in women's sports and understanding uniquely, I think Ann said it, uniquely how to speak to this consumer market. And we get the amazing opportunity to do these really beautiful, amazing, creative campaigns to tell the stories of these incredible athletes. So I feel very lucky for having my client be late that day. That was my moment.
Sometimes it pays off when someone's late. That concept of if not me, then who can be a bit daunting. And I think for a lot of us in this industry, that thought has come up more than once and has driven our careers, but has also driven the momentum in this industry because, again, we've all been fueled by that thought at some point. Tanya, for you, how are you seeing women's sports evolve in this moment, and what do you really feel like is driving the momentum that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, for sure, I think it's our athletes. We've, as a brand, have always put the athlete at the center and used them to help inform. I think now you're seeing that industry-wide. It's our athletes' voices that are truly authenticating brands and cutting through the noise. It's also providing the insights for the areas of growth and the opportunities that we're all seeing. I know we were just talking about the WNBA All-Star. Interestingly enough, the game itself, I want to say that was the afterthought, but it was everything that was happening around it.
It was kind of the afterthought.
Yeah,
it's okay.
It was the moments that the athletes had created around it, the brands that they're connecting with, and the stories that they want to tell. And I think that's where you're really seeing both the acceleration and the evolution, both in women's sport, but in sport in total, but I would say driven by her.
Yeah, I was there covering the All-Star game, and obviously, I mean, in my opinion, one of the biggest moments was when the players came out with their shirts and said, pay us what you owe us, and it was a profound moment, but again, spoke to the fact that there's really so much power in the players' hands right now, more than there's ever been. And I think, Dawn, for you, you've always led in that way. I mean, as a coach, for sure, we see that, you know, every day with how you lead your team in South Carolina, but also as a player, you know? And so in this moment, how would you describe the opportunity that these athletes have and that women's sports has in this moment?
It's enormous. I really feel like we have control over our destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we are open and knowing, like we are educated. It's not like you just take this because this is all we're offering.
Mm-hmm.
It is, sometimes it's a question of how much are you paying my male counterpart?
Mm-hmm.
Or companies are approaching it as such. I'm giving you the same thing that I'm giving our male counterpart. And when you can have those kind of conversations, when you can just, and some companies may take offense to that, but if you don't ask the question, you don't have the option of saying yes or no. Sometimes it's no. Sometimes it might be a lucrative deal, but it doesn't align with how you view inequities. We're just way more into how we navigate the space, and it's just not about the dollars and cents. It's more about whether it aligns with what your core values are, and sometimes that goes further along than the amount of money that you're offered.
Authenticity is everything in women's sports, and we're going to get to it. That's a huge part of this conversation. But before we do, we got to talk about the innovations. And for you, Elizabeth, what innovations in media and sponsorship are really unlocking the most value, not just for the athlete, but for women's sports collectively?
Well, first of all, that we're talking about it. And second of all, that we're actually putting it on TV.
Yep.
You know, we did a study a couple years ago with ESPN to challenge that very traditional number. Remember the number we've all heard for so many years, 4% of sports coverage on television is about women's sports. It's actually, it's worse than that, guys. Here's how bad that study was. It was so old, it didn't include cable. It was linear broadcast. You're like, oh, good God. So when we looked at it, we actually did the math and realized it's not 4%, it's 16%. Still sucks, but sucks 4 times less. So that's good. But the more interesting thing that you saw is the most of the growth came from college. 90% of the growth came from college in these little obscure streaming side channels. And what you saw is that women's sports fans will go find the content wherever it is.
Women work harder. We will work harder to get what we
want.
want.
Well, it's because we have to.
Right.
Like, honestly, one of our studies was all about the ISO fan in the WNBA. That 78% of WNBA fans feel isolated, don't have enough people to watch the game with. All you gotta do is connect them to their friends and they'll go find it. So the issue with, I think, is if we extrapolated the data out and looked at it, and it's like, if you build it, they will come. If you put more content on TV, the women will watch it. They are scrambling they were watching cup stacking during the pandemic. And so the innovations that I'm seeing are people who are getting creative about what they put on, what they communicate, where they communicate, the channels that they use. It's why posts like the one you spoke to go so viral, is because women had to become their own channels over the years to get the content out to the marketplace. So I think the innovation is basic. Just show up.
It's so basic. During my 7 years at the Chicago Sun-Times, I can recall so many conversations about, we just have to cover it. We just have to show up. We just have to write about it. And within a year, 2 years, of course, I was covering a title run in 2021. The Chicago Sky won the championship. But our numbers were competing with our Chicago Bears coverage. And of course, it was the NFL offseason. But for those numbers to be similar, it just showed if you write the stories, if you build it, they will come.
I do want to add one point to that, because I know you're going to talk about authenticity, and I think this is really important, though. The flip side is you can't be lazy about it.
Right.
Because women's sports fans, and when I say women's sports fans, I mean fans of women's sports, whether that's women or men, because it is equal. We have a tendency to treat it like an 8th grade prom, like boys on one side and girls on the other, and it's not like that. They actually watch each other's sport.
Right.
But I do think one of the most disturbing things that we're seeing in our research lately is 50% of all women who do watch sports believe, men's or women's sports, believe that brand advertisers don't understand them. Half of your audience is telling you that you're presenting me stereotypes, that you aren't talking to me about my authentic fandom. Only 4% of the entire female viewing audience believes that as brands that you get them. 4.
And when I hear that, I hear, who are you hiring? You know, who are the people in these rooms making the decisions? That matters now more than ever. And again, going back to the authenticity conversation, because truly, as someone who's been covering the W for, 10 years now, it's since I graduated college, it's incredible to see how it's changed in terms of the players stepping into their own light and being able to be themselves authentically and not think twice about it. Again, we just saw it during All-Star Weekend, the Stud Buds broadcast all weekend long, just being themselves, and how many people were drawn to that. But there was a time in the WNBA when players weren't encouraged to be themselves. They were actually encouraged to mold themselves into a box that many executives felt was going to be well received by the public. And obviously, again, as we see over time, that messaging has been flipped on its head. So my question I want to pose first to you, Tanya, is how has and is authenticity driving the success of women's sports, but in a way we don't see in men's sports or in other sports?
Yeah, you know, I mean, the key is authenticity, and they're showing up as their whole selves, and our consumers and our fans can see themselves in those athletes. And, you know, it takes support of other women in the room. I mean, and I'm, again, grateful from a brand perspective, you know, our new brand president, Amy Montana, you just saw Ann, head of sports marketing, our CMO is women. And they're providing the platforms for our athletes to show up authentically and use their voice. You know, gone are the days of being able to have like a massive campaign or a big anthem and have that be enough. You know, what's really being required now is for the athletes to show up as themselves and for people to really be able to relate. And I think that's truly what's pivoted here most recently.
Dawn, I really want to hear your perspective on it, because you have lived this. You played in the WNBA. We're the 9th overall pick for the Charlotte Sting. Can we give a round of applause for that? And again, you played in an era of the WNBA when it was much different, when that wasn't encouraged. We recently heard Cheryl Reeves say there were executives who told the league that, you know, this will never be mainstream. Well, how do you expect it to be mainstream if that's your messaging? So for you, what's been the biggest shift in why this authenticity is now being accepted and encouraged and is helping, you know, women's sports skyrocket?
Well, you have to think, you know, the WNBA has been in existence for this is 29th year. We were just happy for the opportunity. We had to go overseas and continue our careers. And then when we found out there were 2 professional women's basketball leagues that were forming after our 96 Olympic success.
Yes, can we give a round of applause for that?
It was more about the opportunity, more about not having to pack your bags up and go overseas and spend, you know, more than half of your year in another country. And we were grateful for those opportunities because that's all we had. But then to play in your country, in front of your family, in front of the fans that watched you grow up in collegiate basketball, we didn't say anything. We just really shut our mouths and played. And then if you hang around long enough, you're going to start delving into what makes this league go. And of course, it's money. It is. Money drives it all. But the product is keeping on getting better and better and better and better and better. And then the young ladies aren't like college graduates. You got people who have law degrees. You have people who really understand the finances of the business, and now they're asking questions. Open the books. Let's see what the numbers are. And they're speaking to those business decisions that impact them as women, as parents, as mothers. And I just think that it's long are gone the days in which we're just really happy to be there, because it's much more, like it's a bigger conversation than that. So we've grown in it. We've grown up in the sport. Like all of the young people that I coach, they only know that there's a WNBA. Like they only know that in their entire lives. So they grow up wanting to play. They grow up trying to figure out the longevity of the league and how we can keep it around and sustain itself from a financial standpoint, from a league level, but also elevate the players and how much they get paid and how much rev share that they can get and licensing. And all of those things are just really important conversations for us to have.
We stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us who didn't get to, thrive in the situations in the rooms that we get to thrive in today. I think of my grandma, and when the Sky won the championship, she was so thrilled that her granddaughter got to cover that moment. And it really, again, speaks to the evolution of not just women's sports, but women's experience in life. And I think the intersection is what draws so many fans in, because it's always been bigger than sport. It's always had to be bigger than sport when women are involved. So Elizabeth, for you, you're right at that intersection of brands, athletes, and media. What trends are you seeing right now that are signaling real traction and, to your point, the sustainability of this success that we're seeing now?
So, like, the most interesting thing to me that I see these days is we're no longer having a conversation about how this is the right thing to do.
Oh, gosh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
We used to always say, yeah, you can do the right thing, but it's also right for business.
Right.
Because, math.
Right.
The revenue comes when you, I don't know, actually address half your consuming audience.
Right.
Details. So it used to be, well, we're doing this as a check the box exercise, cost of doing business. I'll sponsor the WNBA because I really want to be an NBA sponsor. And then it moves to, well, it's both. It's good and it's good for business. And I think the shift we're in now is it's business first and, oh, yeah, it's the right thing to do. So it's a little bit in our rear view, which I really like. Dawn said something a second ago that I thought was interesting. The young people don't remember, a time before the WNBA. Like, I have a 19-year-old son. And he said something to me the other day about who was the big WNBA star when you were in high school. And I'm like, oh, Lord, baby, there wasn't no WNBA when I was in high school. And so we had to have that conversation. And when I said there wasn't, when I was not in high school, because I think it was when I was in high school, but when I was growing up, and we had to have the conversation. I said, yeah, that didn't exist. And when I said it didn't exist, he looked at me genuinely, and he was like, they didn't have a basketball league? And I'm like, they didn't have an NBA? And I'm like, oh, no, they had an NBA. They didn't have a WNBA. And that was such a mind-blowing moment for him. Like, it was foreign as a concept. And so I think that is the next trend, too, is really understanding that audience, that Gen Z audience, both men and women in that audience are craving the content, but also a little punitive if you don't have it and you don't get it.
Right.
I tell my brands all the time, for the Lord's sake, please do not piss off a Gen Z woman. They will. They know what right? They know what they want. They expect you to be like them. If you are not, they are punitive, and they will make sure you and your children and your children's children suffer for ignoring them. And they're powerful. We've all heard the stat of the 75% of the wallet that women control, which I actually maintain is a bit low. If you look at Gen Z women, especially with respect to sports, that number skyrockets over 80-85%. It's pushing 90, guys. So they're not only powerful in what they care about, connected as both men and women to the sport, they're also holding the wallet and looking at you and going, you want it? Then come talk to me the way I expect to be talked to. And that's with some respect. And that's a lot of what we're seeing and what's driving the decision making is people waking up to that.
Okay, I got to go off script here for just a second because something you said inspired a conversation for you, Dawn. You know, when you think about Gen Z, they've never known a world that doesn't exist without the WNBA. But there was a time not too long ago where people like yourself, athletes like yourself, were having to aspire to things that didn't even exist yet, that there wasn't even a path in front of you to take. How is the fact that these leagues are not only here, but they're so well established, impacting the product that we're seeing, the actual talent on the court? Because now you have an entire generation of players who have something to aspire to, who have something to put on their bulletin board and say, I'm going to be in the WNBA one day. I'm going to be a #1 overall pick one day.
It's just that's the carrot that has been dangled in front of them for all of their lives. They not only see the game, they see women as brand ambassadors. They see a profession in it that's inclusive of brand sponsorships. The basketball part of it is what they do. I think because of the league being in existence for as long as it has, the product is better. Like, the product is much better because of that. I often think about, like, if I was young enough to have had the WNBA when I was growing up, how much better could I have been? And I just did it off pride. I just did it off pride.
You did all right.
Right? I did it off
How
pride.
many Olympic gold medalists again?
A few.
A few. But that's, you know, when you can see it, you can be it, and that is the, you know, inspiration behind having a league for as long as you've been, like, born, like, for as long. And it's a weird thing because I lived through the time when there wasn't a league. The only thing that we had to look forward to were the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like, that is what we aspired to be. That was the cream of the crop that was like professional basketball to us, to be a part of an Olympic team.
There's so much emotion behind that.
I actually think the see her, be her thing, I don't think where the athletes get enough credit is we pay attention to that. If you can see her, you can be her, and it inspires young girls. But I mean, I like basketball. I couldn't be Dawn Staley. I'm not good at it. But when I see women performing as athletes, and then you see Tanya representing the best sports brand in the world, and you're covering it, and I get a chance to work with all these amazing brands, it inspires people off the court, little girls off the court, to know that they can be part of the ecosystem in the business world, even if they can't play.
Well, we were talking about that before the panel began, in that it's not always about aspiring to be the next Dawn Staley, but, you know, I only played basketball in high school. I was not very good, but it shaped a dream that I had to be in the sports world, you know, and just being able to have that opportunity then dictated the rest of my life and is the reason I'm sitting here today. Tanya, for you, you know, obviously Nike's global headquarters are here. From your seat, what role does Portland play in shaping what's possible for women's sports?
Yeah, I mean, this moment, I think, epitomizes it. You know, the fact that you're going to have 2 women's professional sports teams. You know, arguably, it's not just us that's based here in Portland. There's other players within the industry. I think that just sets the stage for this city to essentially kind of lead in just women's sport in total. From an innovation perspective, you heard Alex talking about it. I mean, we're also thrilled not because of the teams that are going to be playing here, but the amount of teams that are going to be coming through, the number of athletes that we can welcome and bring to our world headquarters. You know, again, it's from those athletes' insights that continue to propel where we're going as a brand, that becomes transformative. And, you know, Elizabeth, you were mentioning regarding the trend conversation, I truly believe like we're in a transformative state right now. And the more investment that you're getting in these cities and the opportunities for athletes are really going to continue to propel that.
You know, the WNBA has been here before. The WNBA is not new to Portland. Can we get a round of applause for the original WNBA Portland Fire? And you know, there's so much history to the WNBA. Like, that's what I find the most joy in is going back into the history of the league. And so when the expansion franchise was named to Portland and I started, you know, hearing about what the potential names could be, and then the Fire name came out, I thought, what a brilliant way to honor the league's history. And obviously, Dawn, you played such a pivotal role in the history of the WNBA. Can you take us back to the origin of the WNBA here, what you remember about playing in Portland, if anything? And also, why, if you do believe, do you think it's important for some of these expansion teams to consider the original names? Like, is there importance in bringing back the original names?
Well, yes, I do, because there are people here that supported the fire a long time ago that will rekindle, you know, that spirit in which they packed the gyms. Like I can remember playing, you know, in the arena and it's packed. Like they really, and they understood, they were very knowledgeable about basketball. And of course they were biased, but they appreciated great play, great basketball. So when you can strike that balance, I think it's a great thing. I do think that Portland is a place in which people will get behind it. I hope that the owners really, really give the fans what they want. Like, hear them out. Like, hear them. They are the consumers. They are the people that's going to buy season tickets. Give them a voice as they unveil the team. Give them a say in perspective. They may not take them, but even if you're being heard, you feel a part of it. And don't leave them out. Don't wait until it's already established to start listening. Start listening now. Because I often find that when you treat people good, they treat you better. Like I mean, South Carolina has been the leader in attendance for the last 10 years in college basketball. Little old Columbia, South Carolina. And it's only because, you know, we mom and pop it. You can come past our office, you can sit down, you can have a conversation with us. We give you access to us. Give the fans access to the franchise, and they will certainly provide a home court advantage that, you know, I'm not going to say is unmatched, because there's some arenas around the WNBA that create a home court advantage that you can only have success with that kind of support.
Accessibility is everything. Most of my closest friends, in fact, are not big sports fans, but they love women's sports because of the connection you feel to the players and to the teams because of that accessibility standpoint. I have a lot of friends back home that are big fans of you because, again, you are someone who feels relatable and feels like someone we can touch in real life. And that accessibility, again, has grown through social media. And you mentioned the power of social media in one of your earlier answers, but specifically when it comes to women's sports, how has social media given way to the success we're seeing now? I mean, you started this conversation with that viral video.
Oh, yeah.
Social media has played a role in what we're seeing today in a way that I don't think is being talked about enough quite yet.
Well, if I'm being honest, it's part good, part bad. The bad part is why. So if you look at statistically speaking, I'm going to get the stat a little off, so don't hold me to it, but roughly around 85% of a male professional athlete's earnings come on the field of play, 15% through endorsements and others off the field of play, and it's almost exactly the opposite for women. 15% on the field of play, 85% off. So the reason that they're prolific on social media, because they have to be or they don't eat. Think about that for like a hot second. That's where they build their audiences. That's where they build their brand. That's where they get their money. So as a result, they're good at it. So I'm a little distressed at that's why the powerful moment of the WNBA. I think we need to like even that a little bit more and pay them more for the field of play. But when you look off, the good of it is because it's important. Necessity is one hell of a mother of invention. They're really good at it. They're engaging at the storytelling. They're relatable. Their numbers show it. If you look at the effectiveness of female athletes on social, it's 2 and 3x even the most prolific male athletes on social media. The effectiveness and the engagement is there because they're good at it. So the bad is unfortunately why. The good is that, and that's where the brands can take advantage of it and continue to support these amazing women athletes who are the most incredible storytellers, and the numbers show it out.
I mean, I think that's something we all can relate to, is having to do more with less, and how that's,
Shocking.
you know, made us masters of all trades. You know, the jack of all trades, that phrase, it means you're not really good at anything. You're just kind of average at everything. So I think we need to start saying master of all trades. You've mastered everything as women. So Tanya, I want to come back to you. The phrase women's sports is not a moment, it's a movement. The success that's happening in women's sports is not a moment, it's a movement. What are you seeing from the athletes and the consumers that validates that for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of recent moments, I think, that come to mind. You know, we listened to the voice of the athlete, and we just had a moment called Breaking 4 with Faith Kipyegon. And if you were to rewind a number of years ago, one, I don't know how many people would have leaned into that. Like, do you actually create a running event? Like, are people going to tune in? You have an athlete from a small little community in Kenya. But what that really epitomized is going back to listening to the voice of the athlete, leaning in and investing, understanding how consumers and fans actually want to take part in it. You know, we did both storytelling around Faith and the journey thereof. We live streamed the moments so that people could actually see the behind the scenes, and then there'll be something that comes out after the fact. But, you know, the momentum is built, not just because it was a moment and a flash in the pan, but we created a movement and a journey that people could actually take part in, see themselves in her as a mother, dare to dream, like we had been talking about. Not everybody's an athlete, but what Faith did there was talk to, nations around what's possible. And we had people coming up to us saying, you know, I want to dare to dream to be in women's sport. Like, I want to dare to dream to be the best at that. And so I think that's what's changing is, one, you're seeing conversations come to the forefront. You're seeing brands invest and lean in. But again, it's because we're all centering it around that voice of the athlete.
Absolutely. I'm thinking of your guys' undefeated season resulting in a title, which was historic, and how people were slowly brought into the culture in South Carolina throughout that season, and the star power of the team, and everything that you had built, which takes so much time. But how do you feel like that, to Tanya's point, the fans being drawn in to an experience, an entire event, again, to the point that you made about Faith's Breaking 4, how important is it to draw the fans into an entire, you know, culture identity of a team, and slowly?
Super important. I mean, one, every year we come up with a theme. Like, what's the theme of our season? And usually you're in the space of our team, and you just kind of figure out, you know, what is authentic to them and how we can collaborate and include our fans. All of our themes are based on, you know, our fans and our interaction with our fans. And that particular year, our theme was love. Like, it was so perfect, although it didn't start that way. It didn't start that way because I had no idea that we would have the type of season we had. But we also had the type of fan base that had experienced so much success that anytime that we lose, you know, the bottom falls out for them. And that's a gift and a curse when you've had so much success. Fortunately for us, we did not have a defeat that particular year, but everything that we do includes fan engagement. Every single thing we think about, and that we don't call them fans, we call them fams, because they're like family members to us. We include them in that, and they take pride in that, and they know that we put them to the forefront. One year, I forget what our theme was, but in that particular year, whatever the theme was, whatever the word was, we have this exclusive group called the G-Hive. We took it from Beyonce's Beehive. So we call it the G-Hive. And we put every single one of the members of our G-Hive names etched in the word to make them feel included in what we were doing. And they it was a cool experience for them to just go try to find their names, and they would use social media to enlarge their name on the word and send it to us and let us know how much they are so appreciative of us including them. It is, if you build it, they'll come. And it'll come in the most unlikeliest town. Like, who would think that Columbia, South Carolina would lead the nation in attendance for the last 10 years with all the successful programs that there are across the nation. But we did it by just really, because there's no money for marketing. Like, there's no money, a whole lot of money earmarked for women's sports on college campuses. There's not. So we had to do it the old-fashioned way. We would invite them in. We would say, come to practice. We have an open practice for you to watch. Come to our offices. We open it up. Come talk to us. We engage with them on social media. So we lead with our fans, and they created. I mean, if you can't win at home, you're not going to be able to win a national championship. And they created that. And when I first got to South Carolina, I didn't even think about fans. I just thought about the product, putting the product on the floor that people could really appreciate. But then they did the work, and it was like word of mouth.
I think the thing that you touched on, though, is people want to feel a part of something. And women's sports has embraced the community of fans differently, I think, than our male counterparts. And that's why you're seeing it go, from, just a moment to truly momentum.
Again, I think of my nieces who watch South Carolina or watch the Chicago Sky and think these players are they're friends. They're Diamond DeShields is my niece's one of her favorite players because of the way she dresses. And it's she pulls up her pictures and talks about what she's wearing. And it's means so much, again, because the fan is drawn into women's sports in a different way. We heard on our first panel about the inclusion in terms of the Indiana Fever welcoming in the Portland Fire to here's how things have gone and why that matters. And so as much as competition is a valuable part of women's sports, that sharing of ideas matters too. So for each of you, I would love to start with you, Elizabeth. What becomes possible when we stop working in these silos and start approaching women's sports with a shared playbook?
So one of the first things we did when we launched the collective was take a look at the research that we wanted to put into the marketplace. You can't reach an audience if you don't understand an audience. And look, we've built an entire Wasserman history, just in the regular Wasserman, of data-driven decision-making, insights and analytics fueling the things that we're doing. And you can absolutely, for people who tell you you can't measure the effectiveness of sports, you can. I can directly tie involvement in sports all the way down to point of sale. It is possible. And so we believe in that. So we wanted to bring that mentality over to the collective and what we were doing. So we reached out to a number of the world's leading academic institutions on gender equity research and asked them to join a think tank with us. And if you think sports is competitive and doesn't like to share, go try academia. And so it's true, girl. And one of the requirements that we had was, if we do this research, we're going to fund part of it, you're going to provide us resources, your students, your grad students, we're going to work together, is it'll be open source. Everybody in the industry will have a chance. You will have to share it with other research institutions. And the look of sheer horror on their faces when I said that. Or actually, I didn't say it. I shoved Thayer in the room, made her go say it. But yet, today, we are very proud. I think we have 28 institutions now. Amazing institutions like UNC and UCLA and Penn and overseas, 3, 4, 5 now. We just signed one in Australia. So all these leading academic institutions are coming together to help us do research, to give to the world, to say, understand this audience and treat her better. And that, to me, is mind-blowing every time I look at that. And it's all open source. You can go to wearethecollective.com and download any of it you like. Go with God. And that makes
South Carolina?
South Carolina. I think South Carolina is in it, actually. That's a good question. I know I went to UNC, so I'm sorry.
There's going to be some fact-checking now.
So
we're going to look into it after the
now
panel.
I'm going to go look it up, but I know UNC is. Go Tar Heels.
Tanya, for you, what's the importance of that shared playbook?
Yeah, it's going to take a collective to truly move this thing forward. I think, we've been investing as a brand for 50 years now, and we've seen that progress. Been able to change things, such as instead of having all white at Wimbledon, women can now wear colored briefs underneath in order to, because concern over their menstrual cycle and things. We can make those impacts, but I think what moves the industry forward is when you have us, you have others such as our competitive set, when you have other brands stepping in, like how can we challenge the institution to actually build a system that's around her? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about whether it's FIFA and some of those organizing bodies, whether it's adding a seat to the table to make sure another woman has a voice. That's truly when we win, and it's not just about us being able to push it forward. It's truly the collective.
Dawn, for you, I know part of your winning is cutting a piece of the net and sending it to other coaches in women's college basketball. So you really set a standard in terms of sharing the playbook and, again, making yourself accessible, but also talking about the industry and how to win with people that some would say are your competitors. So what is the importance of doing that?
I think it's really important that we share. Like, I've been very fortunate to be a part of 3 national championships. I know how incredibly hard that is to do. And I know that everyone will not be a part of a national championship. But things can equate in your daily lives as national championships, because if you're a part of helping a first-generation college graduate, that is national championship-like success. Mm-hmm. And we need to understand some of the coaches that won't win national championship. We need to understand the impact that you have on young people, mm-hmm. and pour into those young people and know that sometimes it's a thankless job, but within what you're doing, like I know it. Like I mentor a lot of young coaches, and I really don't have the time to do it, but when they call, I answer, because it's really important to pour into the people who will be guiding young people far longer than I'm going to stay in the sport. As far as coaching, I'm going to stay in the sport. I don't know how long I'm going to coach, but it's important for us to do that, pour into our young people, because they need it, and they need constant reassuring that they are doing the right thing. Because when you choose to coach, you're choosing to be a dream merchant for young people that, once they check off their goals and their dreams, they graduate, they go to the WNBA, it changes generations, mm-hmm. because they will then go back. Their children, their nieces, their nephews they will see a different vantage point in how they can be successful.
Absolutely. Okay, our time is up. The clock is blinking, so I've got to get them off this stage, but I need to double down on Sarah's question from the first panel, and that's the call to action to everybody in this room. For each of you, what's one thing you want the leaders in this room to think about, commit to, or do differently after today's conversation? Dawn, I got to start with you again as the coach on this roundtable.
I would say this. I met with someone that was CEO of his own company, mm-hmm. and we had a conversation. He was like, "Well, how are you able to get people to work hard and in unison?" Right? He asked me this question like 3 different times. So finally, I asked him. I was like, "Well, do you know your employees? Do you know if they're married? Do you know if they have children? Do you know when their birthdays are?" Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, he's got a goal. He's got a goal to reach. And sometimes people will work for you versus the goal, and they will accomplish the goal. But if you don't know them, like if you don't personally take the time to know them, and you're always, just on a deadline and trying to meet your mark, it helps to really get to know people that are working for you, that are working for your company. Because if you don't, sometimes you'll meet that mark, but sometimes you can move people to a place where they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts for you rather than a company. And there's nothing better than to do it for a person that really cares about you. So take the time out and get to know your people, get to know your teammates, get to know the people that you are working with or people are working for you.
Tanya?
I would say create space. You know, create the space for investment, create the space for athletes or other individuals' voices to be heard. I think just inviting more people into these conversations affords, you know, what we heard previously, allows for growth, allows for additional investment, allows for new ideas. So that's what I would really charge this audience with.
Elizabeth?
I would say do the math. This is not just what's the right thing to do. It is incredibly right for business right now. It will help you reach new audiences. It will help them love your brand. And if they love your brand, it will help them spend more accordingly. This is right for business. So I would say do the math. And if you don't know how, give me a call. I'll explain it.
It's not a charity. It's a smart business decision. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us here. Round of applause.
These chairs
Thank
are hard
you
to
so
get out
much.
of gracefully.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we have a picture.
Oh, picture.
Photo op.
You need with you need to do it.
Okay.
Yay.
Here's your phone, Dawn.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Wow.
Hugs, hugs, hugs. Thank you for showing up. I love you. Oh, I love you. Guys, I got a hug from Don Staley. I love you. See, this is why people don't give me their phone numbers, because I'm like, text them. I'm like, hey, guess what you're going to do? Show up for me. So thank you. Wow. How amazing was that? Is anybody inspired? Is anybody inspired? Thank you. I mean, see it to believe it. If you build it, they will come. And it takes the collective. All of those things, and it's incredible because that's what we're doing in Portland. If you build it, they will come. We're building a practice facility. We're putting the two teams together. We're creating that excellency in one building. And we had to see it to believe it. And like Lisa said, we have the world's best fans in here. I know Don will argue. South Carolina's great. But I remember walking out at Providence Park, and I've been in the Olympics and in World Cups, but nothing compared to it. So I have to say, we're going to go to lunch, but have the conversations that matter. Think about what's possible. Believe crazy, crazy dreams. And then most importantly, we got one more thing before we leave. I know I'm kind of known as the hype woman for Portland. You know, I'm living in my world. But there's somebody, anytime I step on stage with him, okay? And I've been on stage with him when we won the original championship in 2013 with the NWSL Thorns when I was a player. And then I stepped on the podium with him as a GM when we won it again. And then we did the groundbreaking. And so I may be the woo woman, but this is the woo man, all right? And I'm talking about our great Senator, Ron Wyden. Come on up here. Woo! Oh, no, you brought a speech?
4 or 5 hours.
All right, this is your mic. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. Come up here. Stand up.
No, I'm going to do it right here.
Okay. I'm going to sit right here with you.
I got to tell you, first of all, let's give the Thorns and Crenna a big round of applause. I can't hear you.
Woo!
So I was sitting quietly back there.
No, you weren't.
Yes, I was. Listening carefully, and I learned a lot from the panel. Yes. But you know what I'm going to take away as Oregon's senior United States Senator? I am not ever going to piss off a Gen Z woman. It was a wonderful program. And in the lingo of the league, I wanted to come by just for a minute or two, no speeches, and tell you I'm really fired up.
Yes.
But what about you? Are you fired up for women's sports? I can't hear you. So here's the story. We started this push. in the winter of 2023. Nobody thought we had a shot at a WNBA program. And we finally got Kathy Engelbert to come out. And we had every team. We had the Thorns, we had the Blazers, we had the Ducks, we had the Beavers, we had everybody. You remember that, Chris?
Oh, yeah, I remember it.
And Kathy Engelbert was in shock. She could not believe that what we have shown is that the city and the state together are all in for women's sports. All in. And I'm getting ready to drive to rural Oregon. Donald Trump got about 70%. Big win. People debate politics, but they don't debate women's sports. They're going to talk to me about hooping in Hermiston.
Woo!
They're going to talk to me about soccer balls and kicking them in Condon. And they're going to be talking about softballs. They'll be in Fossil. And the point really is, and I'll close with this. You probably read a little bit, and we've taken some hits. We've had a couple challenging years in our little state, as you know. A couple of years, had some challenges downtown. The list goes on and on. But because of the Thorns, because of the WNBA, because of the sports bra, which is now being emulated across the country, we are coming back, and it's women's sports that's leading it. Thanks.
Woo-hoo! Yay!
Thanks.
You're the best. Woohoo! We going to lunch with a bunch of woos. All right, so we don't want you to eat fast, but we don't want you to be late. So have the conversations, okay? Every conversation counts today. I don't want you to talk about anything other than what you've heard, what you're learning, and what we're going to do together. Please enjoy your lunch. Come back at around 1:05. You'll hear my voice. But literally, thank you for being here. But don't just walk out that door and eat. Walk out that door, eat, network, and be better before you come back in here. All right? We'll see you in a bit. Thank you.